Okay, this is a quick video on adding and subtracting decimals. So first off, they're not going to arrange them for you usually on a test. They're going to give you something like this. So there's really only one rule that you need to know for adding and subtracting decimals, and that is line up the decimal. What does that mean? Always rewrite these. So these are questions that you're going to get where you're not going to have a calculator. So don't think you're going to fall back on your calculator skills to solve these. You're going to have to do these by hand. Now, it doesn't matter which one you put on the bottom and which one you put on the top when you're adding, but we'll just keep them in that order that they're in because you might get mixed up for subtracting. So this is what I mean by line up the decimal. If there's a decimal here, you put the decimal there. Now, it looks kind of funny because you're used to this row over here lining up. A little trick you can do, and it's not going to affect anything, is you can add a 0. You can add as many zeros as you want on the right side of the decimal. So if you want, you can just put a 0 there so that you have 2 decimal places here and 2 decimal places there. That's a good habit to have because when you start subtracting, you're going to have a 0 there. So you might as well just go ahead and get used to putting it there when you're adding. So once you have these lined up, you just add them together. Bring down your decimal directly underneath it. So there's your answer, 28.47. So let's say they give you a subtraction problem. Rewrite it, line up the decimal, and here's where you have to put a 0. Biggest mistake people make right here is they think, well, there's nothing here, so I just bring my 3 down. If you were adding like this, then bringing your 7 down is correct because 0 plus 7 is going to be 7. But when you're subtracting, it's a completely different problem because 0 minus 3 isn't 3. So what you've got to do there is you've got to start by putting a 0. Now you can't take 3 away from 0. So again, if you put a 0 there and you just put the 3 down there, you're subtracting wrong. When the top number is smaller than the bottom number, you have to borrow. So the 6 gets marked out and it turns into a 5. Bring that 1 over here. Now you have 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 5 minus 4 is 1. Bring your decimal straight down. 9 minus 2 is 7. So your answer is 7.17. I'm going to write a couple down here. I want you to do them on your own. Okay, so pause your video and solve both of those problems on your own. All right, so you should have rewritten this problem. Like that. The decimals lined up. Add a 0 there just to make it even. Bring down your decimal. You should get 39.37. Step 1 is to line up your decimals. Step 2, add a 0. 3, borrow. 2 becomes a 1. 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 8. Now, when you get here, now you got a 1 on top and a 6 on bottom. So You got to go to the 4, so move it down to a 3, put a 1 there, and now you got 11. And I actually put the 1 second. I should have put it first. That's confusing. Either way, it would have been 11. So 11 minus 6. Bring down your decimal. 2.52. Sometimes you'll have a whole number. For instance, 12 plus 1.62. So if you have a whole number, it's not going to have a decimal. But you can always add a decimal right after the whole number. That doesn't affect the value of the number. That way you can get your decimals lined up. And then you can add 2 zeros. Bring down your decimal. There's your answer. Sometimes you're going to have whole numbers subtracting. So again, put your decimal there. 15 decimal place minus 9 decimal 34. So since there's 2 numbers, you've got to add 2 zeros because you're subtracting. Now, you can't just turn this into a 10. Don't just mark that out and turn that into a 10, because if you got 0 and your friend has 0, well, you can't borrow $1 from your friend if he has 0. So you've got to go to your other friend that's got 5. And he goes down to 4. This friend goes up to 10. Once this is 10, then you can borrow from it. It turns into a 9, and the last 0 always stays a 10. So 10 minus 4, 9 minus 3. Bring down your decimal. 14 minus 9, 5.66. I'll give you 2 to practice. So go ahead and pause your video and work those out on your own. So 8 decimal, 3 decimal, 6, 7. 11.67. Subtracting, add your 2 zeros. Go over to the 7, make it a 6. Go to the 0 next to it, make it a 10. Borrow from it, make it a 9. Last one becomes a 10. 3.87. That is the end of the video. The next one will cover multiplying and dividing. So you've got one worksheet to work on.